All right. Yeah, my name is Christina Brodbeck. I guess first I'll give you a little bit of a background on myself. So I joined before what I'm doing now. I was at YouTube, and I joined really early. It was pretty much just a side project amongst friends. We didn't have any funding. We were working out of our houses, and it was definitely one of those things that I don't think any of us expected would happen to YouTube to have happened at that point in time. I mean, it was. I remember I quit the startup I was working at before, which was really my second job out of grad school, and I had like $40,000 in student loans. So it was, and there was no pay when we joined or anything like that. And so I really do think that Chad and Steve and Javed did a really good job of recruiting their friends. And a lot of that, when you go do your own startup, is crafting your own story, right? How do you get people to be excited about what you're doing? And telling a good story, because you're going to need to convince investors, you're going to need to convince employees, and right now, if you're hiring engineers, it's really difficult. Yeah, so I was at YouTube, I was a UI designer, so, and it was pretty much all engineers for the most part, so I did a lot of whatever needed to be done, HTML and CSS and drawing graphics, which I'm not very good at, so the icons are not so awesome, and UI flows and whatever needed to be done. And then, so that was pretty much like my first 2 years. I worked on the desktops. And then after that, I switched into mobile, and then I led UX for YouTube Mobile. And I got kind of lucky in the sense that it was sort of a second startup within YouTube. When we first launched YouTube Mobile, it was on my co-founder now also worked at YouTube, and he was like, I want to get videos on my mobile phone, right? Like, why can't I do this? So he was running stuff off his home servers, even though YouTube.com was running, and we made some crappy interface, and we played around with it, and then that slowly evolved into YouTube Mobile, and what YouTube Mobile is today with the iPhone and pretty much any device that it's on. So that was pretty cool. And then so I left in August 2009, and I took some time off. A couple months. I probably should have taken more. And then my co-founder and I decided, hey, we really enjoy working with each other because we had worked with each other on pretty much everything. And we had it up for maybe 3 months. We didn't do any marketing or anything like that. And we learned a ridiculous amount about the dating space and how difficult it is and the issues and challenges. And then one of the things and once you get 2 customers, the best dating site in the world would have no users on it, because if you match people up happily, they're not on your site. Yeah. and so we came across that, and then all the imbalances and the gender differences and things like that happened. And I remember I had gone to the iDate conference in Miami, and somebody was talking from, I forgot if it was Match.com or something like that. And they were talking about how difficult, one of their big problems is, user retention. They have, blogs and things like that, but it's not interactive. So we took down the dating site, totally closed it, and then we built this kind of, hybrid model. So if you were single, it helped you find somebody, and then if you were in a couple, it helped you, further your relationship and continue to enjoy your relationship. And so we tested, it was a super basic site. We tested it with about 15 friends over the last holidays, and the couple, the single site was still okay, it's whatever, it's a dating site, right? Yeah. We built that, the couples, a very basic couples, prototype, and that was, I guess, between January and maybe February. And then we said, okay, we're ready to open it up to some people. So we invited only 80 people, and we kept our private beta really, really small from February. It was only 80 people till, I guess, August when we launched in public beta of the website. And we pretty much just drilled down on engagement and all of the core features that we have. And we did a bunch of usability. So we started, you paper prototyping. You can ask people, hey, does this make sense to you? Does this not make sense to you? $25 Visa gift cards are also your best friend. So we would get a lot of people, and then we would give them a $25 Visa gift card at the end of it. Or even if you just, people always say, how can I get out there? I don't have a product yet. If you just go to a coffee shop and you put a sign that's I will buy you a coffee, come test my product, people will test your product. There's always ways to get out there, and you don't need to have something yet. So just start talking to your consumers. And also for us, it was really interesting because our consumer at least what we thought at that time, is not, we were going after the 25 to 35-year-old female, right? And they're probably not super technical, and they probably live in, they're normal and they live in mainstream America, right? And we didn't want to test with super technical people. So luckily, I'm from the Midwest originally, and so we went, but we didn't want just our friends. So I had my friends ask their friends to test. So that's how we got those original 80 people. One of the features we have are icebreakers, which are questions about your personality, your partner, or your relationship. So we send, on the mobile app, we send you a push notification once a day, and it asks you this question, like, what is your favorite body part of your partner? Or like, how can you help your partner in the next 30 days or something like that? And so people were answering them, but then we said like, hey, what can we do to get them to answer even more questions at this time? So a simple thing like, hey, just add a next button after this actually really makes a difference, instead of sending them back to like a browse page where they can look to answer a next question. Also, other things in product, like incentivizing your users, is very important, but you want to incentivize them with something that's meaningful. Like if you just, throw points at somebody, yeah, they'll work for a while, but over time they will lose interest. Same thing with badging and things like that. So we really wanted to make sure that we give you a reward that is useful to you. So, and when you do things on the site that are related to communicating with your partner, like you share a moment with them, like we'll suggest a moment once a day, like capture something that made you smile. So you can capture that on your phone, and it'll get sent to your partner, so they can kind of get a glimpse of what your day is like, even if they're at work and you're at your office. And so after you communicate with somebody, we reward you with date coins, and then those date coins, once you reach 500 date coins, you can mail in your receipt, and we'll give you 20% off of an actual date night. Because, the whole point of a relationship is about experience, and our site, every single thing we build on the site, we want to create an experience. Yes, you can communicate on the site, but it's about enhancing a real relationship, so we want to make sure that we also get you enjoying each other, in the real. You might have quit your job and thought, hey, I want to go do my own thing, I don't want to work for anybody else. But I always think that's kind of funny, because you might have had one boss before, but now you have a lot of bosses, right? You have advisors and investors and users, your board, there's all the people on Facebook and Twitter who are talking about your product, testers, like employees, your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend, or even finding the time to find somebody. There's a lot of people that you have to deal with. And every single one of those people has advisory. And a lot of this is contradictory advice, and it can make you feel like just stopping and giving up and stopping in the wrong. Some of the advice is like raise more money than you need, or just raise enough. Monetize first, or get to know your customer first. Focus first on high engagement or massive growth. Too much competition, or it's an unproven market. Launch quickly and iterate, or get it perfect first. User knows best, or you know best. We invest in the person, but we don't fund single founders. Pay attention to the competition, but don't worry about it. Get out there and network, or just build your product. You need PR, or your product will speak for yourself. You are your best PR person, especially when you don't have a lot of money and you're bootstrapping in the beginning. And it really is about making those relationships. So if you know you want to start a company in 6 months or a year, really just get out there and talk to as many people as you can. And don't just focus on the people who are like influential. You do need to focus on them, and you definitely need to, but also focus on your users so that you can build a better product. And really just start now. And if you can't afford PR and you're the person doing the PR, make friends with journalists, but you don't want to use journalists because they really are nice people, so you want to make sure that, you give them something, right? So, you can write up a story and you can give it to a journalist as a scaffold for them to use, right? You can offer to guest post, or if you're doing something that has a lot of user data, you can aggregate that user data, and create a nice infographic and send it to them. That's one thing that has worked really well for us, because one of our features is stats, so we give you stats on your relationship, and you can like see how your stats are trending over time and compare them to other people. And we've done a lot of infographics, and those have gotten recirculated on like OMG Facts and things like that. Yeah, so hiring a PR firm too early can bankrupt you. So hire them after you have your story down. Like, know what you're going to say, know your brand. One thing that works really well, actually one of our advisors had us do this. He kind of locked us in a room, and he was like, okay, pretend your brand is a gender, right? Is it a guy or a girl? If it goes into a party, like if this brand goes into a party, what is it going to say? What is it wearing? Like what is the pickup line that's going to work on it? What is its past and all of that stuff? And we did that, and we took like pictures from all over the internet, like they'd be wearing these shoes and this shirt and all that stuff. And it really helped a lot. So your blog at first is going to have absolutely no traffic. Probably nobody will know it exists. So reach out to influencers in your space with larger Twitter and blog followings, and find some way to get them to become like a member of your family, right? Whether you have them work for you, you can work on all types of different, arrangements, but it's better to have them putting your content on their site than vice versa. So if you're, even if you're like a normal consumer brand, at least if you're in Silicon Valley, getting tech press might not get you users, but it is good to help you, get social proof and raise your visibility. What else? It's hard to raise money as a single co-founder unless you're like an awesome rock star, and most people aren't. So it's difficult. I think I've funded 2 companies that were single co-founders when I invested, but by the time they went on to get larger funding, they ended up having to get a co-founder. But it's definitely possible. Actually, the company I just funded last week, that guy doesn't have a co-founder, but it's difficult. Let's see what else. Yeah, you definitely need somebody to bounce your ideas off. So if you haven't found your co-founder yet, and it is really difficult in a lot of cases to find a co-founder, first then work on your advisory board and fill your advisory board with people that have the skills that you would want your co-founder to have. They won't be able to give you 100% of your time, but they'll be able to give you some time. And the same thing works for anything. Like if you don't know anything about PR and you're technical, find a PR person on your advisory board. Find somebody who fills the holes in your skills. So one thing about like the whole getting out there or building your product, one thing that was good balance for me is like while you're building your product, that should be your main focus, but go to maybe like 1 event a week, and then right after you launch your product, you want to get out there and you want to make people know. So maybe spend the next 6 months or so and try upping 2 events a week. Another way that's GPR is like speak at events, volunteer at conferences, and things like that. Let's see what else. My opinion is you shouldn't raise money until you completely 100% know that the core team, mainly the founding team, are the people that you want to work with. Because a lot of people invest in people. Your idea is probably going to change, but as long as you know you have a good relationship with your co-founder, at least you might stick together. You don't want to raise a bunch of money and then have a lot of conflict with your co-founder. I tend to think, I'm one of those people who tends to think don't raise more money than you need. I know, but that's not always good for everybody. So I'd say, if you can raise at least maybe like 14 months extra of, as long as you have a 14-month runway, you should hopefully be okay. Social proof definitely exists. I'd say build your profile on AngelList really early on, but don't necessarily promote it until you have, one investor that's willing to be an evangelist for you and that could bring other people on board. The more innovative and new the thing that you are doing, the harder you're making it for yourself. It's a lot of fun. This is one of the things that we've been going through, but you definitely need to prove yourself. And I tend to think like don't build a product that you're not a super user of yourself. You're just going to make it really difficult on yourself. It's possible, but I tend to think you should really dog food your product. So this is the whole like perfection versus iteration thing. I take it one thing perfect and make that the major thing that on the site the users are going to use. This way you can launch quickly, but also have something that seems really seamless, and you can focus on all the rest of the stuff and making that perfect and not ugly later on. I think you should lead the ship. You should have the vision. You should be directing it, but you should make sure that your users and usability testers kind of guide you along the way. I talked about this before. You can test your product anywhere, at a coffee shop, paper mocks, and things like that. And get your idea. Maybe you don't have anything, but get your idea in front of your demographic really early on. That's really the most important thing. Like you want to, like, is this really a problem? Will people really use this? And that's it.